Hello, I'm Johnny from Dicebreaker, and here we are. The slow march of time has brought us inevitably into 2021, and sure, while the whole world is still an absolute mess, there are at least a slew of brand new board games to which we can look forward. So without any further ado, each member of the Dicebreaker team pick the game they most want to play this year, and we're here to talk about them.
Designer Marc-Andre is best known for Splendor, the gem collecting card game that's as tight and polished as a precious stone. Part of Splendor's magic comes from its simplicity. You pick up gem chips to buy cards, which lets you get gem chips to buy cards, to get gem chips to buy cards. You see where I'm going with this. It's a deceptively strategic and competitive race to build up your engine faster than anybody else around the table, one that I've played dozens of times and will still never refuse a game of. In fact, one of the few criticisms that can be aimed at Splendor is the fact its oversized box comes with so much empty space, a side effect of how much it squeezes out of just a few cards and its delightfully clacky poker chip style gems. Andre's connection to Splendor is enough reason to get excited about whatever he works on next, but part of the reason I'm so excited about his next project, Soul Raiders, is the fact that it's nothing like Splendor at all, aside from the fact that they both start with S. Where Splendor went small, Soul Raiders goes big, really big. Inside the box are over 1,000 cards illustrated by artists from games such as Magic the Gathering. Instead of a tight competitive experience, Soul Raiders is a fully co-op narrative adventure. The players are questing heroes in a fantasy world who embark on an epic campaign broken into chapters that last about 1 or 2 hours, that can be tackled in single sessions like an RPG or legacy game. Even if the team fails in one chapter, the story keeps rolling up until the end of the campaign, making it an evolving world and story. What's most exciting about Soul Raiders though is the freedom its gameplay promises. There's no fixed turn order or predetermined series of events, allowing players to explore the world, interact with environments, and complete quests by using the cards in their possession or the tiles on the table as freely as they want. Players can even split up into separate parties, perform actions at the same time, and head off in different directions in the world if they want, although they all share the same pool of health points, so they'll need to work together if they want to survive. Playing it too safe can lead to disaster itself though, with time ticking down if players are too slow or cautious, encouraging them to poke into every corner of the game's world. I was lucky enough to play an early prototype of Soul Raiders with Andre a couple of years ago, and found its card-driven gameplay and non-linear narrative to be an engrossing twist on the open world exploration and choose your own path elements of games like The Seventh Continent. With the promise of a sweeping story to experience in your own way and a huge world and campaign to experience, I'm looking forward to diving back in. Soul Raiders may seem a million miles away from Splendor in terms of its scale, but everything we've seen so far suggests a game that's just as inventive and impressive when it comes to giving players hours of entertaining time together around the table. Will Andre's ambitious plans pan out? I can't wait to find out.
Hi, I'm Wills from the video team, and my most anticipated game of 2021 is Lawyer Up from Rock Manor Games. It's been designed by a partnership of Mike Nade and Samuel W. Bailey. You might remember Mike Nade from Set a Watch, which we were big fans of on the channel. Me and Johnny did a 2-part Let's Play that was a wild time, and we actually, I think, played our first sort of entire video team when Loli's joined board game of Set a Watch together. Before we even started on the channel, so that was a pretty fun moment for us as well. So I was already excited to see another game from Mike Nade. Samuel W. Bailey, you might remember from Forbidden Stars as well, so quite a big name as well. So a partnership that should be pretty fantastic, and it's, as you can probably tell from the title, set in a sort of courtroom sort of battle of wits between the defense and the prosecution. So it's a 2-player card game, one half playing the prosecution and one half playing the defense, and you can flip between those roles as much as you like, and depending on what case from the box that you're playing, they'll have different rules decided by each of the different rule sets that you're playing under. So like the defense might, for example, just have to sway one jury member, or you might have to have the majority on the jury to sway. But essentially the game kind of reminds me of some of those sort of like historical sort of I play a card, you play a card games, kind of like Watergate, that I reviewed on the channel before. It's got that sort of vibe of you have like a card of an event happening in the game, And by playing it, it does a thing. It's very intuitive. You put the card down, it does something. But the interesting thing about Lawyer Up is that instead of just playing whatever card you have in your hand, each card has these sort of indicators on the top, which are kind of a lead of an argument that you can go down. So you'll have all these icons in different colors. So you might have like a skull or a heart or something like that. So the heart, for example, you're using a compassionate argument. So to be able to carry on that argument, to construct your narrative that you're saying as a lawyer, you need to pair those cards up so they make this sort of path. So this card has a heart, so I can play this one because it also has a heart. But because this one has the blue icon, I can use now a blue icon to go on top of that. And you make this kind of row of cards on top of it. We actually did a Let's Play on the channel where myself and Lolies went against, as we had Judge Nana being played by Johnny, sort of overseeing the proceedings, and we had a really good time with it. And it's one of those sort of thinky ones. I think we were quite quiet when we were playing because we were like, just sort of sit there with their cards a lot. But we had a great time with it. I really, really loved it. I think it's probably my it was initially my most anticipated game of 2020, but it's now being released in 2021. I think the estimated date on the Kickstarter is March, but they're also taking late pledges as well. So if you didn't get on it, then you do have a chance to grab it. And with Set a Watch, or just like Set a Watch rather, there should be physical copies available in stores and online as well, if you don't want to go via the Kickstarter route. So I'm really looking forward to that. I'm also looking forward to some of the extra content that's going to be available, because we only played the demo, which means we only played one of the trials that's in the box. We did the art theft sort of trial, but there's also a murder trial, which should be quite interesting with victims and family members and potential suspects and all sorts of things going on that one. But also the expansions that are available via the Kickstarter and will hopefully be available in retail as well will actually take you to different time periods. So this one's set sort of modern day, but you can have a box full of like prohibition characters as there's like a sort of mobster vibe. And one that I find really interesting as well is there's a witch trial, like a Salem witch trial style scenario where you're weighing up whether or not to burn this suspected witch, which is quite an interesting theme that I don't think I've seen in board games anywhere. It's one that's quite heavy, so I hope that they've sort of thought about the sensitivity of that subject, but it should be a really interesting way of sort of getting into the minds of the kind of people who would make those arguments at the time and being like, wow, this is really how people thought, which I think would be quite interesting as well. But yeah, as I said, the two boxes in the base set are Murder Trial and Art Theft. Those aren't just you play them then they're done. They're just sort of like a rule set that you play by. So you can play them as many times over as you want. You can swap positions to see who's better at what side of the argument. But although they have the same characters and same sort of like things going on, there's no sort of overarching narrative that happens in the game that you need to sort of like not have spoiled for you to be able to play it. It's more just a sort of, here's the usual suspects that you'll be playing with and here's how to use them and stuff like that. So you can come at most trials sort of multiple times, and I think it'd be quite interesting just to have like a few different, okay, let's do one of these trials today. Let's try a murder trial, let's try a witch trial, to give it a sort of a different flavour each time you play, whilst also playing with that same sort of core rule set, which is quite cool. And it means you get to mix up some of the events that you have available to you as well. So, for example, Watergate was one of the things that I had as my sort of comparison. That's something that you've got a set number of events to, and you're always playing the same things each game. So it'd be nice to have a little bit more replayability to be able to mix it up and be like, well, let's try this set of cards instead and see how that plays out. So that is my most anticipated game of 2021, Lawyer Up. I'm a huge fan of legal stuff. I love Phoenix Wright. I love Better Call Saul. So I think that's probably swaying me, but it also it's a really solid card game. It's a really solid design. So I'm really interested to see the full product and see it in all its glory. So I've only played it on Tabletop Sim, so I want to see it in physical form so that I can play it properly with some friends once this horrible pandemic is lifted. But thank you very much, and over to the next one.
The board game I'm most looking forward to playing this year is Quest. No, not the RPG Quest, but the upcoming hidden role game by the creator of The Resistance and Avalon, Don Eskridge. Now, anyone who's familiar with either The Resistance or its medieval spin-off Avalon should understand exactly why I'm so excited about Quest. They're both absolute classics in the social deduction genre, and I may speak so candidly, playing either one provides a far better experience than any version of Werewolf. The 5-round structure keeps things tight time-wise. Selecting teams to go on missions forces players to form interesting alliances, and the themes for both games, a dystopian future and an Arthurian past, are undeniably interesting. Quest looks to continue all three of these fantastic design philosophies while bringing its own unique twists to the Resistance formula. The game is set in the same universe as Avalon, but its events take place several years after the original. King Arthur is still having trouble keeping his court clear of corruption, and has decided to tackle this particular problem by entrusting a team of knights to carry out a series of covert quests, the outcome of which will determine the fate of the entire kingdom. So, no biggie. Unfortunately, it seems that poor old Arthur still has traitors in his midst who would like nothing more than for his desperate plan to go awry. These traitors are in the pocket of the dreaded sorcerer Mordred, who continues to be super jealous of the king's popularity. So once players have received their hidden role card, green for Arthur, yellow for Mordred, they take turns being the quest leader. The leader for each round is allowed to choose which players they want to go with them on their quest. Unlike in the Resistance or Avalon, players cannot vote on whether they agree with the leader's decision. After all, medieval England wasn't a democracy. Therefore, any players who have been chosen by the leader then decide, in secret, whether they want the quest to succeed or fail. If any player chooses a fail card, then the current quest is busted and it counts as a loss for Arthur's side. 3 of those and it's game over for the good people of Avalon. However, all is not lost. Before the active team decides on the fate of the quest, the other players can select one of the participants to receive a special magic token. This token forces the recipient to play the Succeed card during their quest, which is pretty nifty, except of course if you give it to Mordred's best buddy Morgan Le Fay, whose sorceress abilities prevent her from being affected by the magic token. Mordred's forces may be able to avoid having their minions voted out of quest lineups, and Le Fay may be immune to the magic token. But if Arthur's team are savvy enough, they could successfully identify every member of the enemy team and win the game without even completing all 3 of their planned quests. Morgan Le Fay is one of 10 possible role cards players can use during their games of quest, with others providing their respective teams variety of different abilities that might turn things in their favour. Considering the kind of powers found in Avalon, I don't doubt that Quest is going to introduce some wild strategies for both sides to win. On top of all this good stuff, Quest has some of the most stunning art I've ever seen. I'm a big fan of bold black lines combined with bright colours, and being a game for up to 10 players, it will hopefully provide a good excuse to invite loads of friends over once we can actually do that. So, I'm raising a goblet to the arrival of Quest.
So my most anticipated game for 2021, and this was quite hard to pick because obviously Oath is coming out and we're getting a sequel to The Crew Quest for Planet 9, which was my game of the year last year, but I've gone with Set a Watch Swords of the Coin, which is an expansion for Set a Watch, or it can be played as a standalone game. So it's not only a brilliant offering for those who like Set a Watch, it's also a jumping in point for people who want to try something completely new. What is Set a Watch? Well, if you're familiar with Dicebreaker, you'll know that this is a game we really truly love. This is a co-op game for up to 4 people in which you are a band of adventurers defending yourselves at night in front of a campfire from all sorts of horrible monsters. It is wonderful, and to be honest with you, I think it is my favourite game to play single player, board game that is, of all time. So can heavily recommend Set a Watch. But Swords of the Coin, basically it's in form, a lot more of the same. The action flows in the same way. You pick 4 adventurers, you keep 1 back at camp to sort of refresh their abilities and try and do things to help the team in future rounds, and 3 people go out to, wait for it, set a watch, and they defeat a line of enemies as they show up. These enemies have certain powers and characteristics, but as do the characters themselves, because your adventurers have powers that you can activate in order to kind of stem the flow of horrible, nasty beasties. And it is quite an exacting game. We've got a Let's Play of it coming up on the channel, actually. Wills and I dropped into the TTS demo, and it went horribly. We got absolutely chewed up and spat out, and I consider us to be pretty experienced set a watch players. So this is a game that can go very, very wrong, but also when it goes right, it's one of those ones that has you like punching the air basically and high-fiving other people because you've seen just that little bit of card synergy, or you've worked things out just exactly right that you can defeat all the enemies excuse me, without taking a load of damage, and you can proceed on to the next round. Victory always feels hard earned in this game. It feels like you really deserve it when you've won, even just playing at the normal difficulty. And defeat can be humiliating. I'll put it that way. You watch the Let's Play and you'll see for yourself. But yeah, all things told, it is the base game is wonderful, as I've already said. Swords of the Coin introduces some absolutely wild new characters with powers and different die types, and sort of different traits and characteristics that have me really, really excited to get my teeth into the sequel. There's even a merchant now, so you can equip items and do all sorts, and of course, in order to keep things balanced, the enemies are a darn sight more powerful as well. So I think Swords of the Coin is going to be a brilliant expansion. It's going to be a very challenging game for new players, but I also have a suspicion it's going to be wonderful.
My most anticipated game of 2021 is Human Punishment: The Beginning. If you're unaware, there is a game already called Human Punishment. It is one of my favorite social deduction games, and as a fan of social deduction games in general, it's great because it does things quite differently from a lot of social deduction games that are already out there. So it's a game that plays from 4 to 16 players. And there are kind of 3, factions you can be a part of. You can be a machine, you can be a human, or you can be an outlaw. And your roles are secret. They're determined by 3 cards that are in front of you. And it's a combination of the cards that determine your role. And so throughout the game, your alliances can actually change because people are able to swap your cards with other cards, and all of a sudden, you've gone from being a human to being a machine, and instead of trying to kill the machines, you're trying to kill the humans, and you completely turn on your team. And so for me, obviously, for anyone who knows me and knows the kind of games I like to play, that's like chef's kiss. I can turn on my own teammates. Great. And there's also a possibility, even when you die, to come back into the game. It is quite rare, but there's that kind of possibility in there as well. So its take on social deduction kind of turned it on its head. Now, about 2 years ago, so 2019, I guess, at Essen Spiel, I spoke with the inventor of the game, and they are now making Human Punishment: The Beginning, which is a prequel to this existing social deduction game. And supposedly it's a pick up and deliver, but also, what was the other mechanic? It's a semi-co-op, pick up and deliver and deduction game, similar to Battlestar Galactica or Nemesis, neither of which I've played, but I've heard good things about. And even like the basics of what he was showing me 2 years ago, or I guess about a year and a half ago, already looked great. It's set in the same world, and anything you play in this prequel, you can bring over to this game. So if you destroy certain roles or whatever, you can then play this afterwards and just remove those roles, and all of a sudden you're playing like an altered version of this game depending on what you played before, which I think is really, really interesting as well. It's kind of like a mini legacy kind of self-contained thing that I'm really, really intrigued about. It's coming out on Kickstarter at the end of January this year, and I'm really, really excited to kind of see where they've gone over the last year and a half with it, and I will be backing it, and I'm very, very excited about it. It is honestly, it's been my most anticipated game of 2020 because it was supposed to be on Kickstarter at the end of 2020. But yeah, this year I cannot wait to see what they've done and to get my claws into this prequel.
We're most looking forward to here in 2021. But what about you? What games have you absolutely chomping at the bit to get around the table with some friends and start rolling dice, moving miniatures, or flipping cards? Please do let us know in the comments below. Hopefully you enjoyed this video. If you did, there are loads more from Dicebreaker for you to watch. Some of them should be popping up on screen any second now. You can also go to dicebreaker.com for lots of written content. You can get Dicebreaker merch from dicebreaker.myshopify.com. Please do like and subscribe so you don't miss anything else from us here on YouTube, but most importantly, thank you very much for watching and have a lovely day.